Hi there and welcome to Tech Life, a channel where I aim to review everything from selfie sticks to laptops to IDs for coding, video editing, software for producing thumbnails, essentially anything tech related. If you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you have anything that you think I should review, please let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to review that product. In this video, we'll be looking at collections again in C#. In my last video, we looked at generic collections. If you missed that, then I'll leave a link probably in the top right hand corner of this video for you to be able to easily navigate to that video. So I say we're going to look at collections, but this time we're going to look at non-generic collections. In terms of data structures, collections mimic the array data structure. The main difference between the two is that unlike arrays, collections do not require a minimum size to be set. And in non-generic collections, each element can represent a value of a different type. So we don't specify a type. When we create a collection of a non-generic type, we do not specify what type of collection that's going to be, because we can put in any kind of type. And types, as we know, can be things like integers, strings, characters, Boolean values. So those are types. So non-generic collections can be represented by using structures like an array list, a hash table, a sorted list, a stack, and a queue. If you see here on the right hand side, generic collections are very similar in that we can create a list, a dictionary, a sorted list, a stack, and a queue. Just a quick recap on some of these. So an array list stores objects of any type, like an array. However, there's no need to specify the size of the array list as we do with an array. And also an array list grows automatically as and when we add elements to the list. With non-generic collections, we don't have to specify the type. A hash table stores key and value pairs. It retrieves the values by comparing the hash value of the keys. And again, because it's non-generic, we don't specify the type. Sorted list. A sorted list again stores key and value pairs, and it automatically arranges elements in ascending order of the key by default. Stack. Stack stores the values in a last in, first out style. It provides a couple of methods. One is called the push method to add a value, and the pop method and the peek methods to retrieve values from this stack. And lastly, we have the queue. Again, the queue stores the values in a first in, first out, and it keeps it keeps the order in which the values were added. It also provides a couple of methods: enqueue method to add methods and a dequeue method to retrieve values from the collection. We're going to fire up Visual Studio and we'll code up some of these quickly so we can see these in action. Okay, so the first thing we'll code up is an array list, and we're gonna create a new project. It's going to be a console application. We're going to give this console application a name. We're going to call it non-gen collections. We let Visual Studio create a skeleton application for us. It'll take a second or two. Okay, and as in all my programs or applications, the first thing I do is delete the programs and .cs, and then I create my own. So it's right click, and we're going to add a new item. That new item is going to be a class. I'm going to give this class a name. and the class is going to be called non-gen collect. Add, and this will create a .cs file for us, and this is where we'll put most of our code. Leave some space here, and I'm going to get rid of some of these using statements because we don't need all of these. So I'm going to get rid of the link one, the text one, and the threading one. And the first thing we need in our class is a main method. So this is going to be public. It's going to have a return value of void because we don't return anything in this method, and the method is called main. Use a capital M for main, and open and close brackets, and then we have the open and close curly braces. And most of our code will go in here. In fact, all our code will go in here. I'm going to put comment in here, and I'm going to say create an array list. Create an array list. So that's a comment. In order to create an array list, we use the keyword array list. Array list. It doesn't like it because we need a using statement. We need a using collections. Copy. We need that one. Array list, and I'm going to call it my array list. And in order to create an instance of this array list, we use an equals and the keyword new, and then we use the array list keyword again. Open and close parentheses with a semicolon. And we probably don't need this system collections.generic. So our collections are non-generic, so we can get rid of that. Okay, so we've created our first non-generic array list. The next thing we need to do is to populate our array list. And that's a comment, populate array list. In order to do that, we use this reference that we've created for our array list. So this name here, my array list, we're going to use this in order to call methods on here. Control C to copy, Control V. Oh, that wasn't very clever. Control C, Control V. And then we can use the add method to add values to our array list. And in fact, I'm not going to do it this way around. I'm going to create variables, and then I'll pass in the values using the variable. So create variables, because this will highlight the fact that we're using different types of variables. We're using different types. So let's do it this way around. Create variables of different types. Okay, so the first one is going to be a string, and the name of the variable. So string is the type of the variable. The name, the reference that we're going to use to be able to access this variable is going to be name, and this will make sense in a second because it's going to be the name of a car. And then because it's a string, we have to enclose it in inverted commas, and we're going to have a value of Revelto. I think that's how you pronounce it. Okay, so that is a string. We've got a curly line underneath the variable, and all that is highlighting is we've created a variable. We've given the variable a value, but we're not using it yet. We'll fix that in a second. The next variable we're going to create is going to be of a totally different type. It's going to be of a type integer. It's going to be called rating. And the value we're going to give this is going to be it's going to be a number, so it's going to be an integer. And if the rating system is 10 out of 10, I'm going to give this an 8 because nothing's ever a 10. Okay, and the very last variable we're going to create is going to be of date time. So it's going to be totally different to string and integer. And I'm going to call this release. And this is the release date that I think this model of a Lamborghini was released on. And in order to create a date time variable, we use the date time keyword. I use the word parse, and then we're going to convert a string into a date time value. And to be honest, I'm just going to use the date. No, I'm not going to use the time. So let's give it a value 26th of October 2023, and close this line off with a semicolon. Okay, so we've got three different types of variables created. One's a string, one's an integer, and one is of type a date. And now we're going to add these to our array list. And we use the reference name myArrayList, and then we use the method add, and we open and close parentheses, and just pass in the variable. So I'm going to pass in name. I'm not going to type all this out again, so I'm going to do Control C, Control V, and then I'm going to replace name with rating, and lastly I'm going to replace that with release. So we've added three different types of variables to our array list, which is a non-generic collection, so we can add any object, any type to this list. Okay, once we've got values in there, how do we get them out? How do we actually prove that we've inserted something into our array list? And as before, we use a simple for each, and I'm just putting a comment here: retrieve data, retrieve data. Getting tongue twisted there for a second. Retrieve data from array list, and I need to spell that correctly. So we're going to use a for each. Open and close parentheses, and for non-generic types, we return an object. We don't return. We can't return one type. So if we just returned a string, then returning rating wouldn't work because rating is not a string. So we return an object, and so returning an object, I'm going to put it into this variable obj, and I'm going to obtain those objects from my array list, and this will iterate for as long as we have unprocessed objects still sitting in that array list. So I'm going to output these to the console by using a simple write line, and I'm simply going to output obj to the console, and that's it for this part of the program. So let's have a quick recap. We created the list. We created the array list up here. We created variables of different types, and then we populated the array list down here. And then in order to prove that we've actually inserted these different types of variables into our array list, we're going to output them to the console. And there's one little part missing here. We're going to do a console.read. This will allow us to view the values returned before they disappear. Okay, F5. See if this works. Take a second or two. Oh, we got build errors. Where are the build errors? Program does not contain a static main. Oh, static void. We've missed out the word static. Schoolboy error. Let's do that again. Rebuild. Okay, no errors this time. F5. And this time we have some success. So if you can see, we've got the three values that we entered into our array list are returned. Okay, that was good. Scroll down a little bit here. Let's do a couple other things. So what if we wanted to access an individual element? We can do that. So access individual item, and we're going to use an index. We can do that quite easily. We're going to place that value into a, we'll put it into a variable called myLambo. And in order to retrieve the data, we use the reference myArrayList, and we use square brackets. Within the square brackets, we place the element number. So all arrays, regardless of whether they're normal arrays, generic collections, or non-generic in C#, the indexing starts at 0. So if we want the very first element within the array, we have to use the value 0. So we place whatever's contained in element 0 of my array list, and we're going to place that into this variable called myLambo. And then I'm going to write a console.write. Let's see if this works. So I'm going to output the value of whatever stored in myLambo. F5. Okay, so the first 3 lines are the for each loop that we did, and then the fourth line myLambo, and then Revolut. I'm not too sure how we pronounce that. Maybe I should stick to the Lamborghini names that I can pronounce. But that's retrieving just a single value from our array list using an index number. Okay, and next we can do something like maybe deleting or removing values from our array list. So remove element, and that's quite easily done. We use we can use the value of the element. So I'm going to write, I'm going to access the array list by using the reference name, my array list. We use the method remove at, and we can remove. Sorry, this is remove at will remove the value that's stored within the element that we specify. So if I use a 0, it will remove the element that's obviously indexed by the value 0. So let's do this. And I'm going to copy and paste this. And just to prove that that element will have been removed. And let's just comment this port out. F5. Okay, so we've got 3 values here. In fact, let me run that again. And I'm going to run this again. But I'm going to comment this line. So it won't output my Lambo and the name of the Lambo, because then it will be a lot clearer as to what we've done. So F5 again. Okay, we've got 2 lines now. If we go back at the top, we created the array list. We inserted 3 elements. We inserted the name, the rating, and the release date. We come all the way down here, and then we remove whatever is stored in element 0, which was the name. And now we can see the name is not output because it's not there anymore. The only thing that's output is the rating and the release date. So that's how you remove an element from an array list. As mentioned before, we can also remove values or elements from the array list by actually using the values within the array. And so if okay, so that populates. We're not going to output that. And let's clean this up slightly. So I'm going to comment this out. And this time I'm not going to remove elements from the array list using the index. I'm going to use, so I'm going to use the reference to the array list and dot, and this time I'm going to use remove, the method called remove. And within here, and within these parentheses, I'm going to put in the value, and the value is going to be this value here. In fact, it's going to be this value. Copy. So I'm going to remove, I'm attempting to remove the rating. Okay, let's see if this works. So this should look at array list and it should try to find a value of 8. And if it finds the first occurrence of 8, the value 8, it should remove that. F5. Okay, so the only two values that are left in that array list are the is the name of the Lamborghini and the date it was released. Okay, so that's two different ways to remove values from an array, either using the index or the actual values contained within the element. Okay, the last thing we can look at is how to clear all the elements from an array. And just a quick comment there. We use the reference to the array list, my array list, and then dot, and the keyword clear, open and close parentheses, and no values within those parentheses, and the semicolon at the end of the line. And so we create our array list up here. We populate these three variables with three different types of values. So a string, an integer, and a date. We populate our array list by using the add keyword, and then we insert the values of these variables. I'm going to copy and paste this. Copy, Control C. This piece of code proves that we've populated our array list. This will then delete everything from the array list, and this piece of code here will prove that the array list is empty. Let's see if this works. F5. Okay, so the first for each loop outputs the three values that we've inserted, and then the second for each loop doesn't do anything because there's nothing in that array list now. Excellent, that's array lists. Okay, next we can look at hash tables. And for this, yeah, I'm just going to get rid of all of this, to be honest. I'll leave the main method where it is. Get rid of all of this. And console.writeLine, content.read key will stay where it is. So a hash table is similar to an array list, but it represents items as a combination of key value pairs. In order to create a hash table, we use the keyword create a hash table. So we use a keyword hash table. We give that hash table a name, my hash. We instantiate it using the equals and the name of the object, open and close braces, parentheses, and a semicolon. We use the new keyword, otherwise we're going to get an error. That's our first non-generic hash created. Next we will populate our hash. We use the name that we've given it, which is my hash, and the method add. And we use key value pairs, so we have to provide two values. One is a string, and the other can be anything because it's non-generic. We're gonna use the name of a Lamborghini, Murcielago, as the first one. I'm not gonna type this out again. So we'll copy and paste, Control C, Control V. Next, we're gonna do what can we do? Top speed or 90. We'll give it a rating. No, let's do 0 to 60. 0 to 60. 4.4. Let's do 3.9. I'm not too sure what the 0 to 60 for this Archilago is. I'm guessing, as I did with the top speed, I'm not too sure what the top speed is either. I think that's fine. 3 values, and they're all, one's a string value, one's a whole number integer, and then one is a decimal, which is not a whole number, obviously. Okay, so in order to retrieve values from a hash, we use our trusted for each. Let's just put a comment in here. Retrieve values from hash. We use a keyword for each. Open and close parentheses. We use a keyword dictionary entry in order to declare our variable. I'm going to call it hash val, and obviously we're going to obtain those values from my hash, which we've just created. Open and close curly braces, and all we're going to do is, as before, we're just going to output to the console. So console.writeLine, and it's going to be hash val, and we get the value. So we're getting the actual value that's contained within this object. So this is an object, and we need to obtain the value in order to output this to the console. I don't see any errors there. Let's see if this works. Control F5. Excellent. And so we've returned the value of 3.9190, and then the name of the Lamborghini. And cool. That is inserting and retrieving values into a hash table. We can also have a quick look at obtaining just one value from the hash. So retrieving a single value from the hash, we use the key. So this portion of the hash table is a key. So in order to retrieve one value, we could do something like let's do console.writeLine first. I have to spell it correctly though. So this will leave a space. Then we put a little comment, say retrieve a single element value. And in order to do that, we can do console.writeLine. Actually, let's put it into, we have to put it into a variable. So I'm going to maybe retrieve the first element, which is going to be a string. So if I do string my Lambo. So that's the type. Let's just make some room here. So this is the type of the variable. This is the name of the variable. I'm going to assign my hash. Open, close square brackets. Name of the key. And because this is an object, C# sees it as an object, but we have to convert this into a type. And because we've declared my Lambo to be string, we have to convert this into, or attempt to convert this into a string. And the reason I'm going to convert it into a string is because I know it is a string. I've encased the value in inverted commas. So I'm going to attempt to convert this into a string. Once I have that string, the string value in this a variable, I can actually then go and output the value of that variable. Okay, I think that should work. F5. And there we go. So the top part is where we use the for each to retrieve all the values from the hash table, and then the last line here, we've just retrieved the one value. We could have done that for any one of those. We could use the key for any one of those elements in order to retrieve. So we could do something like let's retrieve the top speed. We could do that by changing this to the key name, which is top speed. Top speed is now not a string. The number 190 is an integer, so we have to attempt to convert this into a int. And because we're converting that into an int, then we need to change the variable type it's storing to be an int, and then I'm going to change the name of the variable to top speed. I'm going to quickly explain this before I run it, so don't worry, top speed. Okay, cool. So we changed the name of the integer to top speed. We changed the name of the variable to top speed. We also changed the type to an integer. We changed it to a type integer because we know the value that we're supposed to be retrieving is going to be an integer. And getting the value from my hash using the key top speed will return an object. It will return an object, but we have to convert that object into a type. And we convert that into an integer type because we know it's an integer. Once we have that integer in this variable, then we can manipulate that variable, and all we're going to do is output the value. And this part here is just a string. I could put anything in here, but it makes sense to type something like the top speed of my Lambo is F5. And now we have the top speed of our Lambo shown as 190. Okay, what else can we do? We can remove a single element from our hash. Remove single element. We use the reference to our hash, my hash, dot, and then the method remove. And within these parentheses, we have to provide the value of this key, one of these keys. So I'm going to use this one here. So I'm attempting to remove the very first element. Control C to copy. Control V, paste. And we close that line off using the semicolon. And I'm going to use this for each. I'm going to use that for each in order to prove the element has been removed. Let's do a quick rebuild. Make sure everything's working. And F5 to run. Okay, so we're still displaying top speed, which is output because we've got this right line top speed, and then the only two values remaining within the hash are the 0 to 60, 3.9, and then the top speed 190. So the actual name of the Lamborghini has disappeared. Excellent. Lastly, we can clear everything from our hash, and we can do that by again we use my hash because that's the reference to our object, and we use the method clear, open close parentheses, and this for each we'll try to iterate over the hash and output anything that's left. So the anything we'll see initially is a top speed, and then we shouldn't see anything for the rest of this. F5. So it prints out the top speed, and then this clear method clears out everything from the hash, and then when we iterate over the hash, nothing is printed. So there's nothing in there. That is hash tables. Excellent. And next up is going to be the sorted list. So again, the sorted list is the same as a generic sorted list, except we don't have to specify the data type. Sorted lists automatically arrange the elements in ascending order of the key by default. So let's go and delete all of this stuff. Come on. Delete down to here. Create a sorted list. And in order to create a sorted list, you guessed it, we're going to use the keyword sorted list. We're going to give our sorted list a name. We can instantiate this object using the new keyword, and then we're going to use the keyword sorted list with open and close parentheses and a semicolon. Once we have a list, we are going to populate this list. If I can spell the word populate, we will go ahead and populate the list. And I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to copy and paste because I've already got this. I already have this typed out somewhere. Copy, Control C, Control V,
but I do need to change. In fact, I'm going to call this non-generic sorted list. Okay, so that's saved me at least 5 or 10 minutes with my one finger typing. And I will talk through this though. So we've created a sorted list. We've called it non-generic sorted list. So that's our reference to the newly created instance of this object. Once we have a reference to the object, we can use the methods associated to that object, and we have used the add method. A sorted list again is key value pairs. So the very first thing we do is use provide a value for the key. And in this case, we used ESS, and then the actual value that we want to be stored within the list. And then in this case, we've used the name of a Lamborghini, a sensor SCV12. So this is of type string because we've got inverted commas around it. The next value we entered is a decimal value. So because this is a non-generic list, we can put any object we wish into this list. So the first was a string, the second is a decimal, the third is it's actually an integer because it's just 1968. I didn't convert this into date time. And then the last one is also an integer, 180. So that's populated our list, and we're going to use obviously we're going to use a for each loop in order to retrieve the data from within our list. So retrieve data from list for each, and again we're going to use that keyword dictionary entry, and we can place the values into, let's just put object again, obj, and we're going to take those values from this non-generic, where's it gone, non-generic sorted list. We're going to take those values from there, open and close curly braces, and we are going to use console.writeLine, console.write, and we are going to use obj, but we also need to retrieve the value. So we're going to do obj.value. I think this should work. We created a list. We populated the list. And we used our trusted for each in order to retrieve the values from the list. F5. Let's make sure we've got a console.readline. Console.read key will prevent the console window disappearing quickly. F5. And there we go. Okay, so this is these are all the elements contained within the sorted list, and as you can see, even though we inserted the name of the Lamborghini in as the first element, and then the CC, and then the release date and the top speed, it's sorted them in alphabetical order in accordance with the key values. So CC 5.2 is listed first because C obviously comes first in the alphabet, then E, a sensor, and then R and T. So that is a sorted list. What else can we do with a sorted list? As before with all the other lists that we've looked at, we can retrieve a value from an element. Let's just go ahead and do that. Let's leave some space here. And we're going to just retrieve the value from a single element. Retrieve value from a single element. And I'm just going to use a simple console.write line. Console.write, oops, dot write, and then we use the name of a list, which is non-generic sorted list, and then we use square brackets, and within the square brackets we place the value of the key that we wish to retrieve. So let's do CC in order to obtain the engine size, and a semicolon to end that line. I'm just going to put a console.write line up here so it leaves a space between the first output and the second output so we can read this easily. F5. F5, and I should see some output in a second. Okay, so the first 4 lines are the output from the for each, and then this last line 5.2 was retrieved because we requested that C# go away and find this key CC within that list and then output the value of that. Cool. We can also remove an element from the list, and let's quickly do that. Remove a value from a list. So removing an element from a list, we would again use obviously the reference to our list, which is the non-generic sorted list. Dot, and then we have a couple of methods that we could use. Let's use this remove at one first. Remove at allows us to specify an index number. So let's give it an index of 1. So we're saying here from the generic list, non-generic sorted list, remove whatever value is sitting in index 0. So that's the very first element. And then if we copy, let's paste this for each here. So once we've removed an element, then we're going to print out whatever's left in the non-generic list. Let's just put a console.write line in here. Okay, F5. So the first for each loop prints out the 4 values, and then the last for each, the second for each loop prints out whatever's left. And because we deleted the first element, this 5.2, we don't see that in this list. Okay, we've got it there. Let me just clarify this. Let's just get rid of this. Okay, F5 again. Okay, so we delete or we're removing the first element from this sorted list. We're getting rid of this 5.2. So when we output whatever's left in that list, that very first element is missing. We also can use another method called remove. And in this case, we would give we would pass in the key. So we're going to use the key to remove an element. Control C to copy, Control V to paste. So this line of code says look for the key CC. If it's found, then remove that element from that list. F5. Okay, so now we have removed CC. Removed 5.2 again. And let's remove something else just to make it a bit clearer. Let's remove. Come on. Released. So we were saying that was first released in 1968, and I want to remove that. F5. So there we go. 1968 has been removed. So in this case, we are using the key of the sorted list in order to select which element we wish to remove from the list. What else can we do? We can do things like we can check to see if a value exists within the sorted list. So if we go and do something like, let me clean this up a little bit. I'm not going to need this. I'm going to get rid of all of that. Okay. And here I'm going to say console.writeLine. And then the name of my list is non-generic list. And then we're going to use the dot and we're going to say contains key. So we're going to use a contains key. Oh, where's it gone? We're going to use a contains key method. So this is going to return true or false. It's going to return true if this key is found. So if there's a key in this sorted list, which is called released, then it's going to return true. And if that key is not found, then it's going to return false. So it's returning true because released is found. And we can prove that it will do a false if I go and change this to something I know is not there. So REL is not a key, and so therefore it's returning a false. And that's pretty much it for sorted lists. And next we can have a quick look at a stack. Okay, let's get rid of all of this. And then we're gonna create a non-generic stack. And in order to create a stack, we're going to use the keyword stack. We're going to give this stack a name, my stack. I'm going to really original. We're going to create an instance of the stack using the keyword new, and that's it. That's our non-generic stack created. I'm going to cheat again. I'm going to cut and paste in some values to populate the stack. Control C, Control V. So in order to populate, in order to push something onto a stack, we use the keyword push. So we've used the name of the stack, the reference that we've given it, my stack dot push, and we're pushing onto the stack two values that are of type string. So the Gallardo and Diablo, their names, their strings. We're pushing an integer, 180, and then also we're pushing a decimal value of 4.4, which is a reference probably to the 0 to 60 time. We're going to use our tried and tested for each, and because it's a non-generic stack, we are returning objects which have a type of object and no primary type as yet. And we're going to take the values from my stack. Open, close, curly braces, and we're just going to do a console write line. And we are going to output O, which is the object. I don't like O. I'm going to write object obj. That's fine. Obj, cool. Let's see what happens here. F5. So we've created a stack using the stack my stack equals new stack. We populated the stack with these four values, and then we use this for each in order to display the values that we've inserted into the stack. And moving on, we can have a quick look into the first element of the stack by using the peek method. So using the peek method, we can see the very top element of our stack, and we can do that by, let's put a comment in here first. Peek method, and this returns the very top element in the stack. We use we can use a console.writeLine. Console, come on, right, and then we use the name of our stack, which is my stack, and then dot peek, open and close parentheses, and semicolon. So this should display the topmost element, and logically you would think that this very first value here, the Gallardo, is the topmost element, but as we know, stacks have store values in a last in, first out. So the last value that we pushed into the stack was this 4.4. So this will be the first one that is popped out. So when we do a peek, this peek will look at the last value. I'm just going to do a console.writeLine here. So this is nice and clear. And now if I do F5, Okay, so these first four values, 4.4, 180, Diablo, and Gallardo, these are the values that we pushed onto the stack. And because it is a stack, it's displayed in last in, first out. So it's displayed 4.4, 180, Diablo, and Gallardo. And then this peak here, this displays the 4.4, which is displaying the topmost element, which happens to be the last element that we pushed onto the stack. A little confusing, but once you start coding and looking at stuff like this, then it becomes second nature. What else can we do? We can use the pop method. The pop method removes elements. So whereas peak simply looks and displays, if you use the console.writeLine, the pop method will actually remove an element or the first element from the stack. So if we leave some space here, pop method removes top most element from the stack. So we use the name of the stack, which is my stack, .pop, open and close parentheses, and a semicolon. And then if we copy and paste this for each, just to prove that we have removed something, and I'm just going to comment this out because then it'll make reading the output a bit clearer. F5. Okay, so we've got three values that are returned, and the topmost value, the 4.4, has been removed because it removed the topmost value from the stack, and we know the topmost value is the last one that we pushed onto the stack. So that is the pop method. We can also check to see if our stack contains a value. So we can use the contains method. So let's just put a comment in here, contains value. And I'm going to use just a normal console.writeLine. And this will return true or false. So I'm saying console.writeLine. The name of my stack, and dot contains. And then we pass in a value. Let's pass in Diablo. Control C, Control V, and a semicolon. F5 again. And so it's returned true because Diablo is in there. And if it doesn't find anything, then it will return false. So Aston is not in there because Aston Martin is definitely not a Lamborghini. And so it's going to return false. Just there. Cool. And the last thing I'm going to show you is the clear method. And we know what the clear method does. It will clear the whole stack. So if we do we're going to leave a comment that clear the stack. the name of the stack, my stack, dot clear, and this will delete everything from the stack. F5. Okay, so it's returned false because it didn't find Aston Martin. And then we clear the stack on this line, and then this for each loop doesn't return anything because we've deleted everything from the stack. Excellent. So that was a non-generic stack, and the only thing left to do next is a non-generic queue. Okay, so a queue stores values in first in, first out, which is the opposite of a stack. And we're going to get rid of all of this again. In order to create a queue, we're going to use the keyword. So create the queue. The keyword queue. We're going to give this a name, my queue. I'm just going to leave it like that actually. Equals new to instantiate. And then the keyword queue again with open and close parentheses and a semicolon. And that creates our first queue. I have a little list which I can copy and paste. So I'm populating our queue. And we use the enqueue method in order to populate the queue. So we're using the reference myQueue, which we created up here, using .enqueue, and then using open and close parentheses, we can enter values. So again, the first two values that we put onto the queue are strings. The third one is an integer, and the last one is a decimal. So we've populated the queue, and we're going to use a for each to display the objects that we have on the queue. And I'm going to use object obj in and then my queue open and close curly braces, and I'm going to use a simple console.writeline again. Console.write, and then we're going to output obj F5. Okay, so notice the difference here. A queue is first in, first out. So the first value we put onto the queue was the Aventador. So when we come to retrieve it, that's the first one that is retrieved. The second one was Huracan, and so Huracan is retrieved second. 190 was third, and 3.9. So that's the exact opposite of a stack. A stack is first in, last out, and then a queue is first in, first out. And again, the queue has similar methods. It has a way to look at the first element using the peek method. And I can just use a console.writeline. Console my queue dot peek, and this should display the topmost, the value of the topmost element. So I'm just going to leave a space here. Console.writeLine F5. So the for each obviously outputs all four values, and then this peak method retrieves the topmost element of Ventador and displays that there. Okay, so we can remove elements from the array. We could do that by using a method called dequeue. Dequeue. Again, these methods should be familiar to you if you have watched part 11, which is the video on generic collections. So this remove the topmost element. So we're going to use myQ.dequeue, open and close parentheses, and I'm just going to copy and paste this for each and down here, and I'm going to delete that from here actually, because otherwise I'll just print it out twice. Oh, actually, let's leave that in. Control Z. So we'll compare the two lists as they are printed out. Looks okay. F5. And cool. So here we go. We create the queue and we populate it with 4 values. Then we use the dequeue method in order to get rid of the topmost element, which is Ventador again, and then we print out whatever's left in the queue. And so there's only 3 values left: Huracan, 190, and 3.9. Okay, and the very last thing we can do is clear out the queue. And as with the stack, we have a clear method. Oops, clear, and we don't provide any values. We don't pass any values through to this method. It's open and close parentheses, and that should clear out everything in that queue. F5 to run. Cool. So that list is the initial list that we put into the queue, and then nothing is printed after that. So this for each loop here, the for each doesn't display anything because we've called this clear method. And let me make that a bit more clear. I'm going to get rid of, come on, let's get rid of this for each. F5 again. So nothing is output, even though we populate the queue up here and we clear it out here, and then this for each iterates over the queue. Because we've cleared everything out, it doesn't print anything. There's nothing there to print. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there. So that's it for this short video on non-generic collections in C#. Just a quick recap on what we did. We said that non-generic collections are not strongly typed, so we don't define the type of values that we're going to insert into the elements. We said that Non-generic collections again are very similar to arrays, but the difference is for an array we specify the size, and for collections, for non-generic collections and generic collections, we don't specify the size. These collections increase in size as we insert values into them. So at runtime we can insert values, and the array, the collection will grow. Non-generic collections are often classified into array lists, hash tables, sorted lists, stacks, and queues, and we coded up all 5 of those. I hope you found this video to have been informative and helpful. If so, please do consider subscribing and hitting the like button. Thank you so much for watching this, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much.